Hello everyone and welcome to another wavelength. My name is Waveney. I am your leadership mindset coach and I help managers develop self-leadership, self-mastery and influence. Now, here's the question. Are you ready to get on the same wavelength? Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so wouldn't it be great if you had a set of tools that helped you develop and sharpen your emotional intelligence even further? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if you could also, along with sharpening your emotional intelligence, wouldn't it be great if you also develop true empathy, that you really understand what we are talking about when we say empathy and having empathy for others? And wouldn't it be great if you become the type of leader that you are proud of, and also the type of leader that others speak about proudly and highly of? Wouldn't that be great? Yes, I know. So today I am going to share with you some tools, some information about emotional intelligence. And I know that it's going to help you. Now, I have to give credit to one of my followers on Instagram, because it was in December of last year that person reached out, because as you know, I usually tell you, hey, if there's a topic that you want me to speak about, let me know. And so this person had reached out via DM and shared that they would like for me to speak about emotional intelligence. But of course, I had all my content already planned and everything. And so now here we are. And so I'm going to share with you about emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence, let's first start with the definition. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and influence one's emotion, as well as the emotions of others, right? And it involves using the emotional data, what you're picking up, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're hearing, to consciously guide how you lead. And the key word there is conscious. And so you can go online, you can see this is basically the definition of emotional intelligence. Now, one of the things that happens when you start to sharpen and work on your emotional intelligence is that you also get a high degree of empathy. You understand empathy is a byproduct, and it happens because you are not only, you understand yourself. If you realize that the first part of emotional intelligence is understanding your emotions. And when you can lead yourself, when you can understand your emotions, it makes it even more easier to understand the emotions of others. You become more empathetic, you become more compassionate. That's what I found. You can't develop emotional intelligence and not develop a high degree of empathy and compassion. It just, it will happen as a byproduct, and that's a great thing, because these are the very things that will make you a great leader. These are the things that when people say, oh, this person, they listen to me, or this person is a great leader, I love working with them, most of the time, all of the times, I will say that that person, when you see people talk about leaders so highly, 100%, they are leaders who have honed and developed their emotional intelligence. And this isn't something that's one and done, because you're dealing with emotions which vary from day to day based on situations and stuff like that. But what I want to talk to you about today is a foundational aspect of emotional intelligence, and it is awareness. The foundation for emotional intelligence, for sharpening it, for working on it, is having a high degree of awareness. Now, most people only focus, when we talk about emotional intelligence, most people only focus on the part where you speak about other people and managing their emotions and stuff like that. What is usually forgotten is the awareness about yourself, right? And this is where it truly starts. And so I really want you to pay attention and really get this, because if you are able to understand this on such a deep level, it will change your life. Now, it's very easy to identify when somebody has upset us, right? So it's very easy, for example, to identify if we give an instruction or direction to someone and that person reacts in an unfavorable way. Maybe they turn off abruptly, maybe they have a tone of voice with us, and it's very easy to be aware of those things and those behaviors. But where the true awareness lies is in the ability to have a situation like that, and sometimes we label that interaction, right? And so we might say, that person was disrespectful, or this person is out of order, and we might say, who do they think they are, and I'm the manager, and why are they speaking to me like that, or why did they turn off like that, and we make it a thing. No, I am not discounting, in this example, I'm not discounting their behavior, but where the true awareness comes in is in our ability to take a step back, and instead of focusing on the other person and their behavior and recognizing that, hey, something is off here and this is how they react, true awareness really lies in our ability to say, why did I have such a reaction? Why am I labeling this interaction so harshly? Why am I judging it so harshly? Why am I feeling this intense feeling? What is going on? Right? I'm just looking to see. I heard a noise on my camera. Anyway, it's probably the TV or something else. But true awareness really lies in our ability to take a step back and look at the intensity of our emotions, look at how we are labeling the interaction, look at the story we are telling ourselves about that interaction. They were disrespectful. Who do they think they are? What is really happening in that moment? That is where true awareness lies. Not just focusing on the other person. And granted, that person may have been disrespectful. All those things may be true. But the awareness, if we really want to talk about emotional intelligence and we really want to sharpen our skills in it, we first have to look at all the things that are coming up for us based off of that particular interaction, right? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense to you, if you're understanding this, right? So I want to share with you now a story, true story that happened to me that really shifted my perception and really helped me with sharpening my awareness and emotional intelligence. So a few years ago, at my job, there there was this, I had a difficult relationship with a coworker. I found that person to be extremely difficult to work with. And the story I had was, this person is a bully. That's how they made me feel. The things that they did, like they made decisions that affected my job, my area, my department without even asking me. And you know, that's like a no-no, right? And so I saw them as a bully. I saw them as someone who was disrespectful. I saw them as someone who was very difficult to work with. And I really didn't like that person, because let's be honest, it's very difficult to like people who who behave in a certain manner. And because of, you know, several situations, how they behaved, whenever I would interact with this person, my interactions would be tense. So if they came and they asked me a question in person, I would feel my body tense. I would be on guard. I would tense, right? I wouldn't smile. I just would find it very difficult if we were in a group setting and they were at one side of the room. The same, I would go on the other side, because I really didn't want to interact with them, because I found them to be just extremely difficult. I really didn't want to have anything to do with them. Now, around that time, I took an emotional intelligence class, right? By this, actually, he popularized the term emotional intelligence, and this was a course by Daniel Goleman. So I took the course, his emotional intelligence course. Now, in one of the modules, we had to think about a difficult relationship, and automatically that person came to mind. Back then, I didn't have all my coaching techniques and modalities, and I didn't know a lot of things. But looking back then, I will tell you, our subconscious mind, our brains, our bodies are designed beautifully, because we have this thing that we say in coaching, that the first answer is usually the answer that you're looking for. And so without even thinking, this person popped into mind. So we had to think about a difficult relationship at work, and they led us through what was called a compassion exercise. And what the exercise asks us to do is to look at the difficult relationship from another position, right? It asks us to think about what might be the reason that this person was behaving in that manner, right? And I was doing the exercise, and I was like rolling my eyes like to myself, and I was having a lot of resistance, because you know that when somebody is difficult, you see someone as difficult, somebody is making your life, you know, difficult, there's a lot of resistance. It's hard to imagine them as being a real person, right? We do this all the time. So it's hard to imagine that they have feelings. It's hard to imagine that there is a real story. There's something else going on. We tend to think that, you know, it's about us, right? It's about us. Drop an emoji, drop a thumbs up if I am making sense. You know this is true. We tend to think it's about us because we're focusing on how they're making us feel, what they're doing to us, and all these things, and we tend to demonize the person. But I will tell you that at the end I went with that exercise, and I will tell you that at the end of that exercise it changed my perception on that individual. It changed my perception of that individual. And one of the things I realized was that, and I could see it, was that, and this is true, this wasn't something that I was making up. One of the things that was true is at that time we were going through a lot of changes, and that person had to be dealing with a lot of changes, so did I, right? So we were going through a lot of changes. That person was going through a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure on their department. I could see in certain instances that person was scared. I saw it one time that they were scared, right? We had to do a presentation and they were shrinking, like literally shrinking, you know, and I realized, oh my God, I remember thinking, you operate like such a bully, and but here it is that you're afraid. You're afraid to give this presentation. You're afraid to speak up on something that you should know about, right? So I knew they were scared. What the other thing I realized was that I could see that person was in over their head, and I could see that they were trying to prove themselves, like they wanted the changes to work. They wanted it to work because it was their reputation on the line. And so that is the story. That is what I saw. And that is what shifted my perception. Now, this would not have been possible if one, if I wasn't willing to do the work. If I wasn't willing to do the work, then I would have continued having that resistance. But I wanted to work on my emotional intelligence, right? And so it really shifted my perception. And so did I think that that person was disrespectful? Yes, a little. But I also recognize that underlying and the foundation of it was fear. And this is why, and it really shifted my perception on everything else and other difficult relationships after, because I could see fear. Many times when you are at work, and granted, I am not making excuses for anyone and their poor behavior or maybe their attitudes or anything like that. But I want you to understand that many times that when people are acting out this way at work, it's the root of it is really fear. They want to do a good job. Some people, they bring people along, they believe in teamwork. Some people, they want to do the job by any means necessary, right? They're not as conscious and they're not as aware, and they are not willing to do the work at that time, right? And so this exercise, the compassion exercise, that particular module really helped me to shift my perception, and it really helped me to shift to look at the story that I was telling myself about this individual. And one of the things that and this is where the deeper awareness came in, one of the things that I realized also was that this particular person, because then I started asking myself questions. Why am I having such a reaction to that person. And one of the things I realized is that subconsciously, this person was reminding me of authority figures, bosses I had in the past. I had in the past that felt to me at the time like I felt powerless. And she was reminding me about those situations where I felt powerless, where people would just come in and do whatever they want. In a few cases, she even reminded me of a boss I had in my first job that I absolutely had a difficult time with. And so it was bringing up all these feelings and intense feelings. So I saw her as a bully, I saw her as disrespectful, and it also made me realize this is why my body tightened, my body constricted, if that's the word, constricted whenever she was around. It was because she reminded me of that. I wanted to let you know here that our bodies are designed beautifully. I know I just said it a while ago, but it is the truth. And sometimes when we are around people and we are having a reaction and we are having intense emotions come up, it is because they are reminding us on a subconscious level of a situation that we were in previously that was not resolved, right? Because sometimes you need to be conscious to deal with these things. You need to be conscious enough to tell yourself, hey, I'm going now. Hey, I'm now in a position of strength. Hey, I'm not that 18-year-old, I'm not that 20-year-old who had that horrible boss. And this is where the deeper awareness comes in. It's not so much look at what that person is doing. They're disrespectful, they're bringing up all these emotions. But the deeper question is, why are they bringing up those emotions? What is the story behind what's going on, right? And that is the foundation of true emotional intelligence. I know I've said a mouthful, but I hope this story, this illustration really helps you to get it. And so when I understood all this, being around her, it took away a lot of the emotional charge. I still saw her as disrespectful. I still saw her as someone who who wanted to get ahead by any means necessary and wasn't willing to work as a team. But it did not bother me as much because I understood what was going on based on that compassion exercise and also based on my own self-awareness. And so if I were to give you advice on how to sharpen your emotional intelligence skills or muscle, I would say to cultivate a high degree of awareness. Cultivate a high degree of awareness. It will help you greatly because many times it's not so much about the other person, it's about us. Remember, I said in the beginning, emotional intelligence, is the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and influence one's emotion. And so let me really run through quickly how you cultivate it. So one of the things you want to do is ask yourself, what is the story? What is the story I'm telling myself about this situation? What are you telling yourself about this situation, right? And why am I making this? What am I making this to mean about me? What are you making the situation to mean about you? In that example, I was making it to mean that she was trying to sabotage my job. She was trying to sabotage what I was trying to do. I made it seem like it was all about me, when in reality it really wasn't about me. It really wasn't about me. It was just someone with low emotional intelligence trying to get a job done in a stressful situation, right? It doesn't make it right, but it wasn't really about me. You understand what I'm saying? It really wasn't about me. So then you ask yourself that question, and also get curious. Get curious about your feelings. Ask yourself questions, right? And I gave you two of the main questions that you can ask yourself. Also ask yourself, what else may be going on with this person? What else? What additional context? Sometimes when we take a step back, we can see clearly, right? Like in that particular example, going through the compassion exercise made me realize that, hey, it made me remember the time when I saw that she was scared, right? It made me realize that she was trying to prove, and I could spot those traits. I knew that to be true. This wasn't something I was making up. I knew those things to be true. And as I paid more attention, I realized how in over her head she was, and how much there was a lot of things she didn't know, so she was compensating, right? And so it contributed to how she came across. And so you want to ask yourself that question. You also want to ask yourself the question, who or what the situation is reminding me of? Because it may be some unresolved issue, or maybe you had an embarrassing situation professionally that happened to you, and it is bringing up all these things. And so developing a high degree of awareness is the first step in emotional intelligence. And it's not just about the other person, it's about you. I'm looking at my time. It's really about you. And when you are able to take a step back, put the emotions aside, let them down for a minute, and really examine where they're coming from, you're going to feel so much powerful, so much more powerful. You're going to feel empowered. You're going to be able to identify your feelings. You're going to be able to work through them. And here's the great thing I've found about really examining your thoughts and feelings and your emotions. Once you put a spotlight on your emotions, it loses a lot of the emotional charge. You'll find that, okay, the situation might still be the same, nothing may have changed, but you would have changed because you turn on the spotlight on why you're feeling that way, the story and the meaning you're putting behind all this. It may even bring up things that you thought that you had laid to rest, but you haven't. It might bring up people and situations that you need to forgive, but you haven't. And so that is what makes it lose its emotional charge, and it makes you a more empowered and a more in-tuned individual, right? And so you're able to now navigate those relationships moving forward, because you're like, okay, yes, I see, I understand. When someone comes to you with something and it brings up the emotion, it's not going to be as intense, and you're going to be able to recognize, okay, this is what's going on. Okay, I know how to manage myself. And so I know it's a mouthful, but I really wanted to share this key piece on emotional intelligence, and this is just one aspect. But cultivate a high degree of awareness by turning the spotlight inward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the questions down in the description below, so you could have those questions. Thank you for joining me. Let me know. Reach out to me. Let me know. Send me a DM. Send me a WhatsApp. Let me know if this episode was helpful for you. And I will talk to you on another wavelength series. Bye.